And so my inadequacy came from my self-worth, similarly to you. And what happens is when you don't have that self-worth, or you don't see yourself in the light that other people see you in, it kind of sets your brain, your default, with people's intentions to like a default of malice, right? Like if I can't see myself as somebody who is an amazing partner and who is just an amazing friend, a good person to have in your life, you know what I mean? Then I can't imagine or entertain the thought of a perspective where someone would never really do anything or would never dare to do anything like to intentionally or maliciously hurt me, right? Like my baseline is going to be like, oh, I don't have enough value for somebody to not do something like that. So of course they did X, Y, and Z. Or of course that's probably what they meant. Or of course that's probably what they were doing, right? So like my threshold's lowered significantly here. You're listening to Little Pricks Podcast. We're so happy you're here. Get comfortable and enjoy the episode. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the freaking podcast. Let's go. I am amped, man. I am so freaking amped. Look at this place. Look at the new table. Look at the new chairs. Look at all the lights. The podcast room has gotten a makeover, and we are back after what feels like forever, honestly. Like anymore, if we miss any kind of content, I'm like... I have such severe withdrawals from this thing. I love the podcast.
I agree. I miss this place.
Dude, oh my gosh. So thank you guys for being here. We're so freaking excited to have you. Thanks, Fareed, for putting together the table for us. We went shopping yesterday, or the day before, whenever that was. And, got rid of that couch that you hate so terribly.
That couch was the bane of my existence.
It was, and I don't know why, dude. I don't know
awful.
why. Okay, what do you guys think of the couch? Please comment below, because I feel like that couch was not that bad.
They hated the knockoff casting couch. It was terrible. It was stupid. It was orange. It was ugly.
It was orange. I'll give you that.
It had no point in existence.
Oh my god!
And I'm so
like this
sorry.
Couch committed arson against you, sir.
I wish it had been set on fire.
Oh my gosh! Mm-hmm. Wow.
I hated
it's for
that
sale
couch.
on Facebook Marketplace, or I'll post it on the Facebook page if you guys want to buy the Little Pricks podcast couch.
Please buy it before I set it on fire.
I'll post it for sale since you hate it so much.
Yes, this terrible couch deserves no life. Anyways,
wow.
We are still doing some more makeovers to a little bit more of a makeover to this studio. It's going to have a couple more things coming.
It's gone through some changes.
Yep.
A lot of changes back from the early episodes.
Yeah, the early episodes were wonderful because we had that awesome air conditioner behind us and gratuitous shots of our groins.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And I had a microphone I could never hold in place.
Yeah, the vocal mic. Yeah, that one was great.
And we really had no direction what we were doing, going, or coming from. So, thank you for following us along this far on our journey. I think we've had a lot of fun doing this.
We're super stoked to have you guys here.
And I'm coming back from like a 2.5 week hiatus.
Yeah.
Right? I've been traveling the world.
I was going to say, you've been out of the country, dude.
Yeah.
I'm about to go out of state. You were out of the country.
Yeah, I don't go hard. I go hard on everything.
I guess you
I
do.
don't go easy. I'm not going to Denver, right? I'm going to Rome.
Yeah.
If I'm going to travel, I'm making sure I'm herding for 17 hours.
Yeah, I know.
On a flight.
You looked like you didn't know what planet you were on when you got back.
Buddy, just to kind of put this into perspective, because I wanted to really go on a journey, right? Tucson to Phoenix, Phoenix to Georgia, Georgia to Rome, Rome to Florence, Florence to Venice, Venice to Prague,
oh my
Prague
God,
to Istanbul, Istanbul to Kuwait, Kuwait to Jordan, and I know I missed Denmark. I hit Denmark somewhere in there as well.
Wow, crazy.
I didn't stop flying places. So when you asked me what time it was or what day, if you asked me what day it was, there was a point where I was like, the day I woke up.
Right, the day I woke up. Nice. What else is new? Oh, my hair. Oh my gosh. My hair is new.
Yeah,
I had a luxurious horse mane the last time I was on here. I cut some of it off and I bleached it blonde.
It looks fantastic.
Excited. Gosh, I hope you guys are watching this. If you are listening to the podcast right now, honestly, it's your fault at this point. You're missing out, and you should be missing out because I talk all the time about how we've just like remodeled the podcast room. We got all these cool visuals, and Fareed's gorgeous face is on here. And if you guys are missing that, I hate that for you, honestly. Slide over to the video button on Spotify and YouTube Music and just watch the video.
Enjoy it that way, yes.
Please.
So, the last few episodes, I think have been more focused on Devin. This episode came from my thought process in general.
Yeah.
I came back from 2.5 weeks of pure euphoria.
Yeah.
Where life didn't have problems.
Isn't that great?
Right? It was fantastic.
That's the best thing about vacation. And I feel like that's kind of the reason why I've taken some time off. I realized that I've worked for 4 years and not taken a vacation since COVID started. So that's kind of where I'm at too. But anyway.
And so, as I get back, I had full stop, hit a wall. And that brings us to our episode. It is struggling with inadequacy.
You say that kind of centers around you, and I'll be honest. Well, it does. I know that it was your idea and you wrote the script. Painfully accurate also in my life, unfortunately. Because as are really a lot of them, to be honest. I feel like most episodes we can both relate to. What?
Shout out to our one viewer who made the greatest comment about Devin.
Who was that?
We'll keep him anonymous for now.
Oh, okay, fair. That's fair.
But every time we do an intro,
yeah,
he's made the comment that goes, "Oh wait, that poor bastard Devin.
Yeah,
he has suffered through this sort of trauma as well."
Yeah. That's awful. Yeah, I've been through it. I've had some horrific experiences.
God,
here I am trying to be better, trying to learn,
and we're being mocked.
Yeah, we're being mocked. They're like, poor bastard Devin. He's just been through it. Every episode, you can count on him having a story, being like, "Oh yeah, I went through that once. Here's what I learned."
I remember my first period.
Most typically the hard way.
Yeah, poor bastard. But yes, it was just a funny statement he made. And I laughed, and he laughed, and we all laughed, and Devin goes, "I've been through that one before too."
Right.
But it's struggling with inadequacy, which I think is a subject that is very universal. But each gender, I say, would deal with it a little bit differently.
Okay,
I'm not going to dive into so much on how each gender deals with it, only because I don't have the experience on
I
one
was going to
side,
say,
right? But it should be acknowledged that each gender deals with inadequacy or feelings of inadequacy a little bit differently, and I can only speak from the male perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Would have been great to have a woman on this episode for that, but it's okay. This stemmed from feelings I was having, and we can retouch on this episode sometime later. And if you are a woman who has your own input on this, I would love it if you could please comment down below, send us an email, whatever you feel is best to get a hold of us. We want to hear the female perspective that we do not have here today.
Yeah, for sure.
And that being said...
Talking to your mic, buddy.
I don't want to... I'm afraid to move it, and I'm trying to look at our camera.
The camera's looking at you, buddy. That's what matters.
There we go.
This is a podcast, not the news station.
Indominus Sanctis. You take that satanic shit elsewhere, sir. So the feeling of inadequacy is just feeling like you're not up to the task of a particular thing, subject, or even just life in general. And so for me, I was having feelings of inadequacy in certain aspects of life because I've grown to the point where I now feel confident in most of my abilities.
Yeah.
Legitimately, I went from a person who felt he had no value, period, to a person who's like, you can set me down in the middle of Prague and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I did, right? I went and did tons of things. So I'm confident in myself in that regard, but those feelings of inadequacy can come in just so many different ways. And for me, I know that I started feeling a couple of those things, and I had to figure out, it took me roughly a day and a half where I was just kind of quiet, right? And I even told you, Devin, I was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Not there yet. And you're like, but what about this? And he kept asking questions, so I was like, we're just talking about it now.
Well,
and it worked. It was good. It was a really good thing, and I appreciate you for doing so.
Yeah.
But it was really funny because I was like, I don't want to talk about it. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. So does it involve this? Well, no, it doesn't involve that. What was it about this then? No, it doesn't involve that either. but it's a little bit of this. Wait, whoa, we're talking about it. I don't want to talk about it, but we did, and it was really helpful, and I'm very happy that for me, I was able to deal with this in about a day and a half is what it took me.
Right. So just so the viewers can follow, where is this sense of inadequacy for you? Because like that's pretty generalized, and that's pretty blanket. And you say in other areas of your life you feel pretty confident, but like specifically, where are you at here with this feeling of inadequacy?
For me, it was as hard as it is to say, it was the ability to attract a proper mate.
Okay.
Right. It's no longer can I attract a person. I know I can. Right, but can I attract the person for me, the person that I want? And that became very, very concerning.
It's like your life partner.
Yeah, my life partner. Yeah, and that becomes from a place of like, I think a lot of people constantly ask themselves like, are they good enough for me? Which is actually a form of what we're going to talk about. Yeah. But I don't. I internalize things and I ask, am I good enough for the person that I want? Mm-hmm. And that becomes very frustrating because you start to look at all the stimulus we have around us, right? That shows us what perfect is, what is desirable, what is attractive, what is it that we want.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at the TV commercials, if you look at, I just came from Italy, right, where everything is gorgeous, and the fashion industry is so vivid and rampant there.
Yeah.
Right? And you had Prada, you had Gucci, you had brands that are so high-end you'd never heard of that would make, Gucci cry kind of a thing.
Wow.
And they advertise perfection because that's what it is, right? They want their brands to be associated with the elite.
Perfection, or I was going to say, or elitism, like, being top dog out there.
I was observing these ads so much that I would actually start to commend the ads that would show women with, like, peach fuzz. The human aspect of things, right?
Sure,
because they always edit these things so much. Like, oh, I'm so glad they left that blemish kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because these ads were so prevalent. And we're surrounded by them, right? If you're heavily on Instagram or Facebook, you are constantly being told what perfect is. And that's not you. Right?
Sure.
And that's something that I know.
It can be in all kinds of different regards, too. Like, it's not like you're talking fashion and looks, but, like, it can also be...
Not even.
Different lifestyles. Like, for me, like, my algorithm is going to be most prominently, like... van lifers and people traveling all over the world and doing all these things, or like people riding these mountain bikes and crazy awesome stuff.
Yep.
Peru, by the way, if you were wondering, Peru is like one of the most amazing places to mountain bike.
Yep. And that's what I'm saying though, right? Like I saw the fashion aspect of it, but it can be in anything. It could be in lifestyle, it could be...
Go ahead.
Pause everything.
What?
You've got a booger right here. Just go, I'm going to die. Nope.
Just saliva, buddy. I didn't sneeze. I didn't sneeze, sir. I might have coughed some saliva out of my mustache.
I'm going to need a moment.
Why?
It's so gross.
Like,
we're back.
I just coughed. Look at the saliva. Relax. That's so funny.
Saliva grosses me out. It's not like any kind of saliva though. Like clear stuff, whatever. It's like the bubbly stuff. Oh, if you do this to me.
Do what? What was that?
Then when we had the little saliva, I go, will they talk?
That is awesome.
I will bury my own grave. It's fine.
Yeah.
I will dig my own grave. Anyways. Back to what we were saying. It's just these signs of perfection everywhere.
Yeah.
That these brands want us to feel, to see. And you know what? Like, I can't fault them. It is marketing.
Yeah. But
it does have an effect. It does have a counter effect. And for me, it was finally just sitting and hitting me. Right?
Yeah.
And, for the first day, I just sat there like, well, shoot. This is who I am. This is the face I was given. This is the body I have. And I was not happy with it. And, I'm 5'10". The Lord made me 2 inches short of perfect, according to national statistics, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
And the jawline I have, well, this is the jawline I was given. And, and then the finances I have, I mean, I have to look in hindsight sometimes, like I'm doing better than I was before.
Well, sure, man.
Of
course.
But like all these things that you say to yourself, like, oh, I'm not living that lifestyle. Why don't I have my yacht yet?
I guess, yeah.
But that being said, those were the feelings I was feeling. I took a day and a half To just sit there and be like, I hate everything.
Dang.
And just being upset with myself, right? Because I'm a very competitive human being.
Sure.
And if I'm not good enough to compete, I'm very upset about it. And so I had to sit there with that for that time, day and a half.
Yeah.
You know, and you were very supportive, and I appreciate that. But there was
Sure,
a lot
buddy.
to learn from there, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
You know, I know you wanted to talk about a couple of details about this. So tell me your aspect or side of this.
A couple of details. What do you mean?
How you have felt inadequacy, or how you've dealt with it, the ruler.
So, ruler is more of like a tool that I got from a book called Permission to Feel, which I've mentioned several times in the podcast.
Yep.
And that's just more of like determining and recognizing and understanding your emotions and how they've come to be. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. I think that like kind of applies to the solutions section of this episode. But inadequacy for me, when I said that I can relate to that, I think inadequacy, me and what I have to offer like romantic partners and just people in my life in general. And what I mean by that is like, I didn't see myself in the light that other people see me, right? Like, and I didn't realize that was so prominent in my life. But, you know, I don't really sugarcoat or hide much in the podcast. You know, if I've talked about it, I had a relationship end relatively recently here, a couple months ago. And my thresholds were lowered significantly inside of that relationship. And my ability to work through and navigate obstacles was, at this point, with the hindsight I have, I would say subpar.
Okay. So
and so my inadequacy came from my self-worth, similarly to you. And what happens is when you don't have that self-worth, or you don't see yourself in the light that other people see you in, it kind of sets your brain, your default, with people's intentions to like a default of malice, right? Like if I can't see myself as somebody who is an amazing partner and who is just an amazing friend, a good person to have in your life, you know what I mean? Then I can't imagine or entertain the thought of a perspective where someone would never really do anything or would never dare to do anything like to intentionally or maliciously hurt me, right? Like my baseline is going to be like, oh, I don't have enough value for somebody to not do something like that. So of course they did X, Y, and Z. Or of course that's probably what they meant. Or of course that's probably what they were doing, right? So like my threshold's lowered significantly here. And not to say that there weren't justifiable issues here. All I'm saying is that like when you are a person that does not see yourself in a good light, it's pretty impossible or pretty far-fetched to expect you to see anybody else as having that view or that image of you, right? So that's where it came for me and how I can relate to this.
Yeah, definitely. So mine was more on the physical side of things. Yours are more on the emotional side of things, right? And so that lets us like analyze and figure out what is the issue. What we have to be able to define the problem, right? That's where I always start, and that's why we're. And if you've seen our other podcasts, I always start with how can you boil down this problem to something you can kind of chew on and work with, right?
Right, something palatable.
Yes, and so basically, these feelings of inadequacy can be manifested in different ways, right? There's an external version and an internal version. And I'm going to speak mainly on men because I cannot...
Right, yeah, we're not sitting here trying to speak on the perspective of women for sure.
Right, you often see, especially men that deal with like dating issues, which I've seen a lot of guys who just like don't get it. Right?
What do you mean?
Like a lot of men will sit there and do the external version of dealing with inadequacy, where they don't get attention from women in particular.
Okay.
Right? And then a lot of these people tend to look at it from the point of view of like where they're the problem.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Society is the problem. Women are the problem. Da 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 da.
Anybody but me is the problem.
Exactly. That's an external version. It has no accountability. It can be aggressive towards the outside world.
Ooh, yeah,
can acknowledge there's an issue. The issue being I'm not getting X, Y, Z.
Right.
But doesn't have the accountability to actually do anything with it.
Right.
Everyone else will always be the problem. So that to me, that's one gross one. That ain't me. Right. I do I do the complete opposite side of that.
The self-hatred, probably.
Yeah. Internalized, which is basically I take out these issues on myself. An internalized version is very harsh on the way they treat themselves, talk about themselves, or acknowledge themselves, and typically tend to set like unrealistic expectations or standards or time frames to accomplish certain things that causes a cycle of self-abuse or self-isolation. Which
right,
is
and that can look like all
do.
kinds of things, right? Like, and it doesn't even have to be like blatantly self-isolating or blatantly self-abusing, right? Like for me, it was like this subconscious, just like blanket of like over my eyes that I just couldn't even see, right? Like I didn't realize that I was doing that, but like deep down and subconsciously, I'm sitting there sabotaging, not allowing people. It's to the point where like I'm pretty certain, like pretty much at this point, I have not been able to really see or feel love that people actually have for me because I just didn't have it for myself. I couldn't see it for myself and for who I am as a person. So, of course, my brain couldn't comprehend and process that of how people could feel about me. You know, like in my friendships, I feel like I've done it, and in romantic relationships, I've done it. You know, and it's like, damn, man. And it's not so obvious always.
Yeah, and actually, this gave me a great idea here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just had ideas.
Okay.
They settled in.
I see. You're just saying like, yeah. So if you're feeling like inadequate or you feel weak, go work out. If you feel like, you know, basically things that are just going to boost your confidence, right?
Well, fix the things that are broken.
Yeah.
Yep. So, back to what we were saying here. There's the internal, the external version. I am definitely the internalized version. I take maybe a little too much accountability for my issues. And
that's definitely possible to do. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that until recently when somebody was like, dude, you are okay. You are all right. Like, you're a good partner. You're a good person. You're a good friend. Like, you are human and you are fallible just like anybody else. But, like, you 100%. Crucify yourself.
100%.
You don't get, and even in, you know, our most recent episode before this one, like, you know, that was one of the shorts. I was like, hey, man, I'll give everybody else the slack and I'll be understanding. Oh, they're human. They make mistakes. You know, they're trying the best with the information they have at the time. But then I'll just sit there and crucify myself. As if I'm not allowed to make any mistakes, or I'm not allowed to have some slack or some understanding, or just or just be experiencing life, like not have it all perfectly figured out and orchestrated right now.
The problem effectively becomes that the idea that a person is not good enough or not worthy, if you sit with that for too long, it can become detrimental to yourself or others in society, right?
Yeah.
And that would be the external version of that. Means you just upset and hurt other people outside.
And not intentionally, but you will, like subconsciously, man, you will sabotage. You will have lower thresholds for controversy and for obstacles and for adversity inside of any kind of interaction.
If you decide the world is a problem, you're going to be angry at the world and you're going to treat it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Telling the whole world it stinks and it's just your upper lip.
Yep. It's just your upper lip. And if it's you that's upset with yourself, the world's going to notice that you are upset with yourself, that you're internally struggling. You're not going to want to deal with the world very much, right? Because you no longer feel worthy to be out there with the rest of them. And either way is problematic.
Yeah.
But defining that is so important.
Yeah. So just a review. So you said there's external and there's internal. The internal is more of like the self-hatred, turn all of the frustration and shortcomings in toward yourself as self-abuse, isolation, negative self-talk, and then the external is kind of like the world's the problem.
Everyone out there's the problem. I'm perfect.
All women cheat, or women are just looking for one thing, and it's not me.
Oh, men suck. And,
right? Sure.
Things like that, or you know what? The job market is skewed against me.
Right.
I can't get a break in life. I can't get a good deal on X, Y, Z. Right.
Yeah.
This, for me, the subject came in the concern about not being able to find the right partner for me because I wasn't good enough. But this is really a subject that can be for anything. It's not just. It's just most powerful when you're dealing with sexuality or anything related to the opposite gender or same, I guess, for some people. Right, attracting a mate. Right, that's what it comes down to.
Yep. And so what does that look like? Do you think? I mean, like some of those symptoms, which we've kind of touched base on, but like, what have you done? What does that look like for you?
So for me, the symptoms were frustration was the first one.
Sure.
Real
reasonably
frustration, so. Right? And because I became frustrated because I kept looking at myself as like, that's bad, that's not okay, that sucks, that's terrible. And I said, well, that sucks. There's nothing good about me. It just went there. My brain just
Right.
automatically went like, there's nothing remarkable.
Right.
I'd
Or
look at
like for me, it was like, oh, well, that sucks. I wish that would have worked out. But again, here it is. It didn't. God damn it. You know?
Yep. So that was a nasty one for me. I would look in the mirror and I'd be like that was very upsetting, right? I mean, men have body issues as well, mental body issues.
Oh, sure.
I deal with those a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
And which is so funny, right? Because like, you know, myself and other people included have like said like, oh, you know, why do you have those issues? You're so handsome. And like, arguably so, man. You're a handsome guy, right? But like, you can be told that a million times, and it does not matter, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can be told a million times, you know, hey man, you're good looking, don't have any self body. Why would you ever have those issues? And it's like, man, you know, billionaires cry in Ferraris.
Yep,
you know?
billionaires crying Ferraris.
They just do, and like you would expect, like, oh, you shouldn't have any problems. You have millions and billions of dollars. What's the matter with you? Millionaires and billionaires kill themselves. That is a fact. That is a fact. And so,
I think I found my stem on this one too. It all started with like I was on that trip. I was able to ignore it then, but like I was told I was overweight quite a few times.
really?
Oh yeah,
Jesus.
I was told I was overweight a few times, and I was like,
Shame on
okay,
that person, Jesus, that's not very nice.
you know, I don't think they recognized how hurtful that was at first, but like
Yeah.
eventually I was like, okay, you said it one time, 2 times, 3 times, okay, we're done here at the 5th time,
Right, my
and I was like,
goodness,
okay.
yeah.
And so I started nitpicking
Hopefully you set that
myself.
boundary and like was like, hey,
Multiple times I did, and eventually
Okay.
they got it, and it was like, the damage is done.
I was gonna say,
Right,
yeah,
like
at that point the damage is done. My God, man.
And I started listening to that, and I acknowledge that, right? Like, I personally don't look at issues like that and say, well, I'm just overweight, and that's that. No, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to change that, and I'm going to fix that. And in fact, I've roped your ass into this, too, 'cause I'm making you eat turkey meatloaf with me with
You
flies
know,
in it.
which, hey, I didn't have any flies in it, and I thought the turkey meatloaf kind of slapped. I'm gonna be honest. I know you hated it.
Horrible.
I liked it.
It's delicious. It's delicious for you.
Anyone else turkey meatloaf out there?
Then I'm not saying
Come
turkey
on.
meatloaf is bad. I'm saying that turkey meatloaf sucked.
Fair.
Okay, so my negative self-talk really came into play, and it was
Which
rough.
is like not so unreasonable, man. Right? Like,
Yep.
okay, like let's just maybe touch base on that. Like when somebody's just like blatantly saying hurtful and mean shit to you, like, okay,
Yep.
maybe not even struggling with inadequacy, sure, but like with the context of that going on, that's more of just like somebody was hurtful and hurt your feelings.
But they weren't wrong. That's where my brain finally
That's
went
subjective.
to. It was subjective,
That's
but like,
super subjective.
but then I was told by multiple people, and so like you're just like, okay, there it is, right? And I don't feel that overweight, but I know I'm not at my best, and I acknowledge that because I do have a standard baseline for me that I'm like that I can live with, right?
Which like no one can fault you for, but just for the sake of like, hey guys,
Yeah.
you know, hey, there's a lot of subjectivity here, and like, you know, there's a lot of things that surround even that, like body image issues, or like you know, not that ideal weight for you, like you said, you know, and then so that's pretty subjective, and that gets hairy. That gets hairy for sure.
I've done the lean 160 weight for me.
Wow.
I'm sitting about 182 right now. I've done the 160-ish pounds.
Yeah.
I look fantastic. You could have photographed me. I was beautiful, right?
You're beautiful now, damn it.
Well, but I was miserable because I had to have such a strict order in my life to maintain that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even like putting you on a magazine cover, kind of like shredded. And I don't know how that, like, you can't maintain that. That's just, you're miserable all the time.
Right. A good clarification here, right? Like, so I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, sometimes that feeling of inadequacy doesn't even always come from how you look or, like, not being at that whatever quote unquote ideal freaking means. And it's also a place that can come from, like, you know, perfectionism, or it's like, you know, being at that whatever you would consider ideal could also be your source of inadequacy, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, you have that perfectionism, which led me to comparing myself to others. That's definitely a symptom of feelings of inadequacy. Then you have the idea that you have to people please. If I'm not going to be at this point, then I'm not making people around me kind of happy to be around me, right? Because I believe that you are somewhat of a reflection of those that you keep around you. And that just doesn't rely on me, right? I want to be a good reflection of the person that's next to me. Right? Someone's chosen to spend their time with me. I want to look good and make them look good. Right? It's all these things that start to kick in. And then, of course, the fear of failure. That's where things kind of came to a head. Where I was like, well, what if I don't find my person because I didn't give him that second glance kind of a thing, because I was feeling 183 that day versus my pretty moderate 168, 170. Right? And then I decided to self-isolate because I was upset with myself. And I let myself fall this far. But you know what? These are the symptoms, and I was able to acknowledge and recognize them. And that was the important part of this, right? Instead of making this a big deal, I just felt like shit for 36 hours.
Well, and so this is a really good spot to bring in ROAR again, right? You recognized it. So that's the first in the acronym of ROAR. And man, I know I've said it a few times on the podcast. Guys, please read that book, Permission to Feel. It is such a good tool. A tool, it's a weapon. That thing is a freaking shield and sword against not being completely bulldozed by your emotions. So ruler is like the basis of this book, right? So R stands for recognize. So you did that, you recognized that, and then use for understand, right? Because what good is recognizing it? Like, I'm pissed or I feel inadequate. Good. Well, what are you going to do about it? So what good is that without understanding it? So that's you. Then you label it. Okay, I understand where this is coming from. Let's label it. What is this? Well, it's feeling of inadequacy. And then expressing it, I would argue, kind of is what we're doing now. You're expressing that. And then R is just to regulate, right? And regulate doesn't mean suppress. Regulate does not mean shove it down and not like burden people with your problems. Regulate means like be that observer. See those ebbs and flows of emotions and just not get so engulfed in them, which I feel like is kind of when we're going to get to the end of the episode where we have like our solution / conclusion. And that's kind of like our regulate session. So again, a worthy mention. Please, if you haven't done so, not the Road Less Traveled, Permission to Feel, Dr. Mark Brackett.
Yep. So that we've seen the symptoms of all this, and I come down to my conclusion, my solution of all this, right?
Right.
And I had to come
or at least what we're trying to do to kind of
right. Like, we're not going to give you a problem, just sit there and like blue ball you and say, well, figure it out on your own now.
Right.
These are things that I've tried, tested, and they work for me, work for you.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
they're general sentiments amongst the internet as well by professionals, and we are not professionals, but we use what professionals say.
Well, we absolutely use.
Issues.
In fact, I went back and several episodes ago, I started therapy again. I got a psychologist this time. I am not playing games, bucko. Not to say that any other form is not adequate. It's just that, like, for me, I have to really get that, like, logical, scientific explanation. And as long as I can get an explanation and understand where, like, my feelings of inadequacy, my insecurities are coming from, I'm good. I'll understand. I'm all right. I just need to understand.
I get it, man.
You know?
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. So the first solutions that I came to were that comparison is the thief of joy. Whether it's you comparing yourself to others or comparing a partner to someone else and wishing your partner was more like someone else.
Comparing one version of yourself to another version of yourself, or a version of yourself you wish you were. Yep. Oh, man, have I done that.
It leaves you unhappy and it isn't worth it. Comparison is the thief of joy. Whether it's you comparing yourself to others or comparing your partner to someone else and being upset that they don't meet those ideals, no matter which way you're doing it, you're stealing happiness from you or the person around you.
Wow, man. That's so true. That is so true.
So that was the first step. And acknowledging that comparison and holding on to those comparisons can be unhealthy. Recognizing that, yes, you can make changes and you need to have some kind of barometer is different. It's how you deal with those feelings that make the difference, right? You lusting after a version of yourself that you had, or lusting after a version of a person that you would find to be ideal, it's not real healthy, right? You saying, you know what, I've been there, or I could be there. I kind of have an idea of what I want to look like, and making an action plan to do that and accomplish that, that's much more healthy.
Exactly.
Because you're making a change. You're not sitting there in self-pity and wallowing.
And so that's something I saw, and credit to the Midnight Gospel, I think, is the podcast where it was on. But, like, you know, that's part of the evolution, right? Like, that's part of the growth. You know, you don't, maybe, you know, part of it is just accepting that where you're at right now is okay, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with having these goals to be better, and there's nothing wrong with striving to be a person who's more well-rounded emotionally, or even, like you said, physically. But, like, part of the evolution, part of the growth, man, is accepting and loving where you are now and being okay with that and not being a person, because again, that sense of inadequacy can come at the person that's like 160 pounds and shredded, but realizes that it's like miserable and like not really that sustainable. But it can also come at the person who like is arguably at a healthy weight, but like maybe isn't at that ideal weight or that ideal body model, that body status, or that ideal financial status. Like it can come from either end,
funny
right?
too, you mentioned that because while I was traveling, right? Like I'm not your posh traveler. I'm not going to sit there and I'm not a posh traveler, so to speak. I'm not getting a ride to everywhere I'm going. Like I did a lot of walking.
Okay, sure.
And I did a lot of climbing, and I'm basically a child when it comes to exploring things. Like if you give me something that looks climbable, I'm going to climb it. I'm going to be a
That's
monkey.
cool.
I'm going to do stuff. Like,
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
yeah. And one of the things I was really proud of, that even though I am overweight currently, I am
Subjective, Daniel.
sure for what my standard baseline is, I was healthy.
Yeah.
Like I could run, I could jog, I could climb up stuff. I wasn't winded. I felt good. Like I could do these things, and that's, thank God, it's because of the boxing and the weightlifting that I do.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
like
sure.
I was able to go out there and be a great version of myself that was just able to experience things, and that was wonderful. But I wouldn't have recognized that had I been constantly comparing myself. But I did use it as a form of saying, you know what? We don't have this, but we have that. And there's the baseline is there.
Sure.
Right? And so part of another solution I was going to talk about was that your brain will sit there and try to bend itself to accept the negative aspects of yourself. Right? It's going to say, you don't look perfect, you're not this, you're not that. The goal is to work on yourself. And it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be heavy duty. It's just knowing that you're constantly changing. Right,
And that's not the point anyway, right? Like, self-improvement and growth, emotional growth is in and of itself a journey. And it's a thing that's, it's slow moving. It's like anything, finances even. It's just a slow burn, man. It's not like an overnight jackpot lottery.
Nope. And even if you do want to be upset for a day, day and a half, that's okay.
Sit with it.
Sit with it. Enjoy it. Feel it. Suffer it. It's going to suck for a little bit, and that's okay. Right?
For sure, man.
And I really enjoyed that I gave myself that time.
Yeah, and look where you're at now,
I'm much happier
Instead
now.
of like months and years later, still loathing and the feeling and in the feelings and then the misery that is inadequacy. Here you are talking about it, right?
Action plan. For me, it's all about action plans. And
like sometimes I feel like we just avoid so much the pain and we avoid all of these things that aren't so comfortable in our lives that we actually prolong our suffering.
Oh, yeah.
You prolong your suffering exponentially, but if you would just sit with it and sit with those demons, sit with those feelings of inadequacy, sit with those things that make you lose sleep at night, and just sit with them long enough to understand them and deal with them, you slice that time that you suffer in half.
I also want to make a point here that we talk a lot about making changes. For me, I like to use the word action plan.
Sure.
Something actionable, something you can just go out and just do, right? And we've had people criticize us a little bit for that, whereas like, you're too intense. You are constantly pursuing perfection and whatnot.
There's
right?
a gray line. It's a gray area. It is.
There is a gray
That's valid.
And when I say things like action plan, it doesn't mean that you all of a sudden have to throw on these running shoes and get out there and hit everything hard, right? It just means that you want to see a change, and change can only happen if you do an action. And an action is typically best executed when you have an idea of what you want it to look like. Right? So when I say these things, it doesn't mean that you all of a sudden have to become this sweaty human being that's just trying and struggling and working at it like Hercules holding the globe kind of a thing, right?
You finally agreeing that not every opportunity has to be taken to grow?
No.
I think you are a little bit.
No.
I think you can sometimes skip it and you can just you maintain a little bit.
Nope. I'm simply saying...
No, you said it. It's on camera.
Nope. We can go back and read it. I'm simply saying that action plan can simply be... waking up 10 minutes earlier, or maybe not having that extra slice of cake, or maybe you're a little more quiet sometimes. Small little changes.
I think it can also mean sitting on the couch and rotting for the day, just for a day.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that is progress still, right?
That's fair. I see what you're saying with that.
Yeah. You're never going to get me in that trap.
Oh, yeah, I am.
No, you're not. No, you're not. The next part of the solution is get to know yourself.
That's the biggest one, man.
Yeah.
That is the biggest one. I think if you guys don't take anything else away from this episode, get to know yourself, because I'm telling you right now, man, it is only through just meticulous, nonstop work of getting to know myself more and more and more and more do I finally understand not only my value to myself, but the value that I bring to the world and to other people. And that all-encompassing helps me be a better person, be a better lover, be a better friend, you know?
I think the next one is one of my favorites. It's try to challenge unkind thoughts about yourself.
Absolutely. Challenge the shit
one.
out of those. What
Yeah.
validity could it possibly have? Go ahead.
Only the validity you give it.
Wow. Good one. My God. Say it again. So, wow.
The only validity those negative and unkind thoughts have about yourself are the validity you give it.
That's so true, man.
And
wow.
it comes down, the epitome of that is basically whether you say you can or you can't, either way you're right. You are what you say you are, and you are who you act as.
Mm-hmm. And you tell your brain something, man, it will look and seek out evidence in your life to prove what you have told it.
Yep. And so it leads to the next thing, which is say positive things about yourself. Speak kindly of yourself.
Right.
Right.
And like that sounds easy on paper. Like, oh, just why are you sad? Just don't be sad. Well, okay. What we mean by that is like do things that make you happy. Seek out yourself. Give yourself the time that you give others, even if that means taking away from some others for a little while. Like do the things that make you feel good. Work out. Ride mountain bikes. You know, do the podcast that you've wanted to be started forever.
Yep.
You know,
I'll give you an example of this actually. You know, say positive things about yourself or to yourself can be very difficult. You can look in the mirror and say, I don't like this body. Mm-hmm. Right? That's a negative statement. But you can also say, but I'm really happy that I'm working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
And you've
nothing
just
wrong with
changed
Sure.
that into a positive, right? Or, you know, I'm not happy with how my body looks, but I'm really happy that I'm the kind of person that's willing to work on it and change.
Right.
I don't have to live here.
Yeah.
Right? So your statement doesn't have to be deceptive, because that's what a lot of people tend to think when they say, I got to speak nicely of myself. They think they have to lie to themselves. You don't have to. Right?
Okay.
You can sit there and classify or bring to light the thing you do not like about yourself, but then put a positive spin on it.
Sure.
And you have to, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely, man.
if you have nothing nice to say about yourself, then you can say that you are the person that's willing to work on it.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a big, beautiful, bold statement.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes even like when you're at a kind of a rock bottom even, and you maybe don't have anything nice to say about yourself, like a little bit of external validation in there, I think is very, very valid and reasonable to ask for.
It's not bad.
You know, because it's a place to start, right? Because like that's kind of what led me to finally believe that I'm a person of value and that I'm a good friend, I'm a good partner. It's just kind of other people saying that. And it's like, it's so weird, man. Your brain finally makes connections and it finally rewires itself for those two frayed wires that have been, you needed to connect it the whole time, but they were buried under the rat nest of underwires. Mm-hmm. You finally find them and you finally connect them. And sometimes that's from external validation and that's from people saying things to you that you need to hear, you know, like because sometimes it just, and you can tell yourself you're great and awesome until you're blue in the face, but until somebody sets you down, like, hey, you're okay. Mm-hmm. You made mistakes, but you are still a fantastic partner. And it's like it finally clicks, and you finally connect those wires in your brain. You know?
It absolutely helps.
For sure.
Some of the other things that I was working on is practicing saying no. You don't have to spread yourself thin. You know, some things just do not suit you, and that's okay to say no. Say it nicely. Don't hurt people's feelings.
Yeah, no, sure.
But you know what? Hey, do you want to go out and do this thing today? No, thank you. I appreciate the invite. I'm glad you thought about me. Makes me feel validated. Makes me feel appreciated. But I really want to give priority to going to the gym today. Or I want to give priority to whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And then remind yourself that you want to do things that are nice for you, right? Yeah. And that might be sticking to your action plan. That might be going to the gym. That might be going on a shopping spree. That might be whatever.
Yeah.
Just make time for the things that are kind to you. And that's what matters there. And of course, your sentiment, which is ruler. Yeah. Practice ruler. Now, I had to do a couple of things that I know that made me incredibly happy, right?
Sure.
Work on the things that you feel inadequate about. And so I will give you perfect
that's
examples.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah, absolutely.
I will give you perfect examples, right? I felt like a weak human being. Right? I used to have this concept that I was a tiny human. And I'm not a large human, but I am a human that takes up space. Right? Like, you are a large human. You are 6'2" giant, whatever.
Yes.
Right? I am 5'10", but I now recognize that there's some mass to me, and I'm not exactly tiny, right? I'm not mouse-sized here. But if I felt weak, which I did, I started exercising. I saw them numbers going up.
Yeah,
right?
Exercising, working out. Yeah, you do the boxing.
I felt defenseless. That's when I had a lot of fear for. And so I said, well, I don't want to be defenseless anymore. So I now practice boxing, kickboxing, so I know I can defend myself or others if I ever need to, God willing. Right? Which actually there was a statement by Jordan Peterson that actually got me to finally cross that threshold, which was wonderful, right?
I think another one you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, it was asking about your virtue. Are you a nice person because you have to be, or are you a nice person because you can? And that one is the one that woke me up a little bit. And this statement basically means, are you nice because you're afraid people will hurt you physically otherwise? Or are you nice because you want to be nice and you know you can hold your own or hurt other people? There's no virtue in a weak person being kind. There is virtue in a person that is big, large, or can hurt you being kind because they choose to be. That is their nature.
Yeah.
Right? One you have a say in, one you don't.
Yeah.
And
the gigantic guy that could definitely like snap you in half over his knee, but chooses to back away and be like, no, man, like that's all right. Like,
or better yet, the big guy that decides he can have your milkshake.
What?
Right?
Yeah.
He can take your stuff because he's bigger than you. Right? And just says, that's not me. That's not who. That's
right, that's
horrible.
just not right.
Yeah. Right? But when you have that power, right? That is a difference. That is where good virtue comes from. And
fair.
so that was one of the things that made me realize, like, I had to question myself.
Yeah.
And that's when you find your true character as well, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
if you know you can do these things.
It's the concept of behind closed doors, really, is what that is. You know?
Sure, I suppose,
You know, like, what do you do behind closed doors when nobody's looking?
Are
you being a person that's like a person of their word? Are you being a person that, like, given eyes would be on what you're doing right now, would you still be doing it? You know.
Yeah. And so when I felt defenseless, I took classes and I'm learning who I am. Am I a person of good virtue, or am I a person that was nice because he had to be? And I'm liking the results. I'm just nice because I'm nice.
Yeah.
That's who I am.
Oh, good.
Good,
man.
That was a question I had to answer for myself for my own struggles with inadequacy.
Yeah.
I had to know who that was. If you feel like you're not very attractive, do a photo shoot that highlights you.
Those are cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Show yourself at your best and show what you can do, right? And start to like that person because you got to live with them.
Yeah.
And any changes you're going to make them.
Yeah.
And most importantly, remind yourself it's going to be okay because we are all going to make it and you're going to figure this
we're
out.
Gonna make it.
You just got to do the work.
And believe me, there have been times in my life where I thought that I was not going to make it. But the reality is that I did, and you're going to as well. And you made it through 100% of the battles that you thought you were never going to make it past at this point. And here
100%.
you still are, you know.
100%. And now for our conclusion, which is it's a very pretty one, I would say, and that the conclusion here is that we have a very real and prominent problem.
Very real, in all aspects. Yeah.
And it is, I can only recognize one amongst men as I can experience it directly.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not to discredit the fact that women absolutely go through the same things, and maybe in some cases more harshly than we do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a point of contention that we as a society now live through with so many avenues to experience this through. It's like every form of media out there is there to remind you that you're not quite good enough. And you need to remind yourself, if no one else does, that that is just simply untrue.
Yeah.
And if there's any logic I can leave you with, is do not compare yourself to these socially accepted perfections.
Yeah.
Because what is being...
It's just not reality.
Well, what's being sold to you is a product. And a product has to be the most palatable, most perfect version of what can be made.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but that's not who people are. You are talking about a minuscule, portion of the population.
Yeah.
But just because you're not that form of perfection that is being sold to you, does not mean you are not your own form of perfect.
Well, and even then, it's like the picture doesn't encompass everything, right?
Nope.
Like the millionaire walking down the street with his Rolex and his suit on still cried in his Ferrari. You just didn't see it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Well, there's another one that I came to as well that, like, we may not all look the same, but God damn it, in person, I am a riot.
Yeah.
I am lovely. Like, I am really fun to be around typically.
Exactly.
I have the gift of gab, and I may not look
gift of gab.
Yeah. I may not have certain looks or things to me, and that's okay. I still like myself plenty, right? But I know that in person, I am wonderful.
Absolutely, man.
And so that's something to really remind yourself that you have your gifts. Use them.
Yeah, absolutely. And your gifts don't have to be the same as somebody else's for you to have value, right?
Nope, not at all. That's an important thing to remember. You have to keep yourself grounded in reality.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. And that's not always easy.
No, God, no, absolutely not.
You have your beauty, and that you have to remind yourself also that the goal isn't perfection. It's to embrace your inner self and the changes that you can do. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, the pursuit is the goal, right? It's the journey. The journey is the goal. This is what matters, and we tend to lose sight of it, and that's ultimately what hurts us.
Yep. No doubt, man. No doubt. Enjoy the journey, man. You are not here to have it all figured out. No. You are here to experience and embrace where you are now. And again, that is part of growth. That is part of the evolving. And this is being okay with where you are right now.
You said something to me that was really helpful too, right? I think you walked in on me that day when I was like, "Yep, everything sucks."
Yeah.
But I was working on replacing the lights in my ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I was doing electrical work, just wiring. And I was doing to what came natural to me. I fix stuff. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You looked at me and said, you going to turn off that breaker?
I wish you would have.
You going to turn off that breaker? And I said, nope, that's fine. Because I was confident enough in my skills that I knew what I was doing.
Oh, God.
And yes, you should always turn off the breaker before you do electrical work. That is 100% proper information, or hire a professional. But I recognize that that is something that I can just do. I played with live wires and I was fine. Yeah. Because that is one of my skills. I can do these things.
Oh, goodness.
I should turn off the breaker. That is professional advice. Turn off breakers.
Yes, please.
But that is one of the things that I have value in. I can do these things, and they're second nature to me. I found a little bit of value, and you pointed it out, so thank you for that.
Yeah, of course, buddy.
And maybe sometimes ask your friends, and if you are a friend to someone, maybe remind them where some of the value you see in them, because it does make a difference.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as someone said I was overweight and a little chunky and not attractive, that stuck with me, but so did Devin saying, hey, that's really cool that you can do that, and my God, that's a wonderful trait to have, that you can just fix stuff. Yeah. Look how handy you are.
Yep, absolutely.
Both of those things stick with you. And so be a good friend to your friends, because you never know what they're struggling with.
No doubt. No doubt. Check on your friends for sure, guys.
Yep. And I think that's a great place to end.
Absolutely. It was a good one. Good episode back. I'm definitely, that was intense for me. I'll be honest. That one was a tough one. I'm sweating.
It's just because the AC is off.
No, I sweat because, man, these are tough. These are tough conversations. I will take physical pain over emotional pain any day. But here we are for you guys every week talking about the hard stuff so that you can be inspired to do the same. And we're so freaking glad to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for guys. All of our new followers. Thanks for all the people that have been here for probably since the beginning, to be honest. And
all of you.
We're excited to see you guys in the future. Tune in next week. We'll have another episode coming for you. And
thanks to all of you little pricks. Following these two little pricks. We'll see you next time.
Love you guys. Peace.